All right, let's talk about something we all interact with every day. Machines. When you're working with AI, have you ever stopped to think about who's really in charge? It seems like a simple question, right? But believe me, the answer is getting wilder and more complex by the minute. So today, we're going to dive deep into this partnership between humans and robots to figure out who's actually calling the shots. I mean, think about it. This partnership is everywhere, right? It's in the autopilot that helps fly a plane. It's in the algorithm that tells you what movie to watch next. It's totally woven into our lives. But to really get a grip on who holds the power in this relationship, we've got to start with the basics. We need to define what we're even talking about. And this isn't just some casual question people are asking. Nope. It's so important, in fact, that there's an entire field of academic study dedicated to it. It's called human-robot interaction, or HRI for short. So what is HRI, really? Well, at its core, it all boils down to two main things. First, exchanging information. That's just the back-and-forth communication. And second, coordinating actions, which is basically how we team up to get stuff done. You can almost think of it as the science of teamwork, but for people and machines. But here's the kicker. This isn't some simple one-size-fits-all kind of deal. Not at all. Researchers actually see it as a spectrum, like a sliding scale of control that moves back and forth depending on what you're doing and the tech you're using.
And the spectrum is super helpful because it lets us map out the balance of power. So on one end, you've got human in the loop. That's maximum human control. Right in the middle, we have human on the loop, which is more like a shared partnership. And then way over on the other end is full autonomy, where the machine really takes the lead. Let's start on the side where we humans are still running the show.
All right, first up, human in the loop. This is where the human is in total command. In this setup, the person is the absolute center of the action, the essential, active operator. The best way to picture this? Think about a potter at a wheel. I mean, the wheel itself is a machine, right? But it's the potter's hands that are in direct, constant control. Every single little movement, every decision, it's all coming from the human. The machine is basically just an extension of their own will. And this kind of hands-on control creates this really powerful feedback loop in our brains. Because our judgment is front and center, we get instant feedback. That lets us learn on the fly, fix mistakes immediately, and constantly update our mental map of how the tool actually works. It's super effective. Okay, so let's slide over to the middle of that spectrum. This is where things get really interesting, because the partnership starts to shift. The human role changes big time, moving from a hands-on operator to more of a watchful supervisor. You know the classic example here, right? It's a pilot using autopilot. The system is doing most of the routine flying, but the human pilot is always there, keeping an eye on everything, ready to jump in and take over at a moment's notice if something weird happens. They're on the loop, not in it. That's the key difference. And when you put them side by side, you can really see that fundamental shift. Your role changes from operator to supervisor. The most important skill isn't active control anymore. It's situational awareness, just knowing what's going on. And you're not learning from direct feedback. You're learning by watching the system and figuring out exactly when you need to step in.
And look, this isn't some far-off sci-fi concept. This is happening right now, today. This model is the backbone of modern factory automation, with people overseeing robotic assembly lines. And it's also at the very heart of social media content moderation. Where an AI flags something, but it's a real person who makes that final, crucial decision.
Okay, now we're arriving at the far end of the spectrum. Full-blown autonomy. And this is where a really fascinating twist comes in. Because this stage doesn't just change what the machine does, it fundamentally changes how we learn to work with it. So in a fully autonomous system, our job isn't to operate it or even supervise it second by second. Instead, we become something like governors of the system. We're the ones who set the rules of the road, we handle the weird edge cases the machine can't figure out on its own, and most importantly, we're the ones who make sure there's accountability for what it does. And check this out, because this shows exactly how we adapt over time. Researchers have a cool name for it: temporal learning. Think about it. The first time you use a new piece of automated tech, your performance together is kind of clunky, right? It's often low. But as you get more experience, you learn to calibrate your trust. You start to get a gut feeling for when the AI is on the right track and when it's totally off base. And over time, that human-machine team becomes so much more effective. Of course, this learning curve looks different for everybody. It's totally influenced by who we are as people. Things like our own cognitive traits, how nervous we get around new tech, or even just our general feelings about whether automation is a good or a bad thing. So, all of this, it leads us to the biggest question of all, really. As these systems get more and more independent, how on earth do we make sure they're operating safely, effectively, and, maybe most importantly, in a way that we can all actually trust? Well, the answer isn't to just throw our hands up and take humans out of the picture completely. No way. The answer lies in designing smart governance. And what that really means is strategically and very deliberately putting a human's judgment right at the most critical decision points, making sure a person gets the final say when it really, really matters. And the payoff for getting this right? It's huge. Two big things. First, you slash systemic risk. Having a human checkpoint can stop one tiny error from snowballing into a massive disaster. And second, you preserve legitimacy. Let's be honest, we're just way more likely to trust and accept these systems when we know a real person is keeping an eye on things.
So this all brings us to the key takeaway. For any operation where the stakes are high, we're talking medicine, finance, defense, you name it, embedding human judgment at those critical moments is the secret sauce. It's what cuts down the risk and maintains trust. It's literally the key to making sure these powerful systems work for us, not against us.
Which leaves us with one last, really fascinating question to chew on. As these machines get smarter and smarter, what do you think is the one human role, the one type of judgment that we should all agree must never be automated? It's something to think about, for sure.